We are recording. Hey Siri, pause.
There we go. How many people listening to this, if they're playing out loud, would it pause their Siri?
Well, if they're listening, they won't have their Siri playing.
I don't know.
If you
sometimes
it will make their phone activate.
Well, there you go.
It's kind of funny.
It is. Because I'll say Starry, my cat's name is Starry, and Siri will respond.
Right.
So just a morning meandering.
Yeah. Well,
hey John, what's that?
This is the John and Tara podcast with John and Tara Baklund. We changed the name.
Yeah.
And I haven't changed all the graphics yet, but stuff to do.
I really like that. Well, I suppose you're going to change the writing, not the shield, right?
Yeah, I'd have to take the writing off. We'll do that. I'll change that.
How are we going to fit all
that
on there?
Up top and bottom.
Yeah.
John and Tara Baklund podcast. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
That looked like a whole collie pattern there.
Yeah. Let's talk about your special coffee.
Oh, it's amazing.
You've got your little Cafe Zinho, your little tiny coffee glass.
Yes, it is a cafezinho cup.
We got a cheers.
That was a real clink this time.
Excellent native root coffee.
Butter, you make it into butter coffee. That's
butter
just our
coffee
favorite.
with a touch of sugar, and I also put a little bit of vanilla powder in the coffee grounds when I put it in the French press, and so it gets a little bit of the vanilla kick. I can smell it when it's brewing. Yeah.
Yum.
It is good.
It is good.
Very good.
All right. I do love it actually cold. I should have you make another. We'll see how much remains of this batch. Because it's mid-July. It just turned summer. Yay. Yeah. And I like it cold in the morning. We have a hot batch now, but...
Well, we had a very good friend that would say it is good before he drank.
It wasn't cafe. Yeah, Aji.
Oh, Aji, yeah. It's so.
I know it's a different name. Right?
Aji was your one of your host dads. Mm-hmm. You had host dad and mom down in Brazil when you were in Brazil, and he was the one that befriended me the most, and the only one that didn't speak English.
Yeah, he was really special, and it's interesting. I think it's kind of like anything when you're a child as opposed to an adult. And I was there when I was 16, 17, and you're basically still a child in a lot of ways. And you just don't notice some things about the adults around you. And then going back as an adult was really eye-opening. Yeah. And, well, especially when I was there, I hardly spent time with them. They were working all the time. And so most of all, he would drive us he was in Rotary, and that was the program that I went to Brazil with. And so the most time I got with him, which, can be really special time when you're in a car, it was driving to these meetings. And, because in an environment like a car, there's other stuff going on. John, what are you doing over there?
Didn't realize my computer wasn't on.
So, but going back as an adult, you obviously have different perspectives, and he was definitely a very special person and a great man who unfortunately passed away soon after that trip. Yeah.
We would be drinking the homemade rum called cachaça, and we drank, me and him. We would sit up while we were staying at their place. We would sit up most of the night and drink and talk, and we didn't speak each other's language. We understood enough of each, and the drunker we got, the more we understood each other.
So was it just getting drunk or scaling mountains that people understand each other's languages?
Well,
that story?
in any kind of extreme circumstance, I think there is a process that happens, which is very interesting. So
yeah, I probably shouldn't refer to things that are like not a part of the dialogue, but there's an amazing story of a crew scaling like Everest or something like that. And they were all speaking probably English, but they were each
No,
from different
they all
countries.
spoke different languages. They didn't speak English. That was part of the thing. It was a coalition of different countries. And the people that were on the expedition did not speak each other's languages.
Oh, wow.
And they wanted to do the whole climb because they were all mountaineers. They all knew what they were doing. So they wanted to do it as, mountaineers. So they had a common understanding of, climbing, belaying, all this type of stuff, right? And they got caught in a massive storm. And everybody made it down, but it was one of the most arduous things they'd ever gone through in their life. And when they got down to when they finally got to the base camp, they realized that they were all talking to each other the whole time, and they understood each other, and none of them spoke each other's languages. And there was people that spoke English, but most of the group did not speak English. So under that stressful event, they were hollering at each other. They were, because the storm and the wind and all that. And they started talking about it through translators, and they realized that they were all speaking to each other and they understood each other. And I think it's just a testament to the human capacity, the ability of the body, mind, and spirit to come together and have people, with the shared adversity.
Unity through shared adversity.
And it's like, it's like the grandma lifting the car off of the toddler, when there's been an accident and, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Miracles happen. Is
Right.
kind of what you're saying.
Right.
Excuse the noise. Edit.
So,
That's the door.
That's what we call a Hoosier. That's an old kitchen, piece of kitchen furniture.
Yeah.
That is an antique, and that's what happens when woodworking cabinets and stuff are really old.
Well,
It doesn't have it. You probably had sliders under the drawers at one point, but they're not guided. They don't have bearings.
so the phrase "everything but the kitchen sink." Well, back in the day, you didn't have these built-in cabinets that were attached to the walls. You actually had pieces of furniture that were moved into the kitchen.
Well, and a kitchen sink was a bowl.
Yeah.
that you put water in. It didn't have a faucet.
Yeah, or if you're lucky, it had the pump faucet.
Yeah.
Indoors.
Yeah.
That would have been a luxury.
Going far enough back, yeah. I mean, you're. So I started out by talking about your coffee, and I just want to talk about how special you are.
All right.
Because
wow.
I got you the little sippy cup, the little cafezinho cup.
Yeah.
And that means small coffee in Portuguese. And when I pour your coffee, I make sure there's foam on it. And I pour it, and you get a nice little layer of foam, and it's buttery foam. It's not like just frothed milk. It's really, really good. And I serve you first.
It is very special and sweet.
Yeah. And that brought up drinking with a G.
Yep.
Because that was one of the best moments of the week that we were there. That was one of the best moments, and it was continual. I know that Ajit was teaching. He was in the university teaching, right? And he would come home and he would be looking for me, and I would be like, "Yeah, I want to get back, and I want to hang out with Ajit tonight." And we had so much fun. One of his daughters was dating a guy, and Paulo, and we were like, we were pretty hard on him. He would grab his drink and take a drink, and I would grab his arm and put it down, and he spoke a bit of English. He wasn't super good, but I said, no. I said, you wait for the Father. And as you would be like, yes, he could say some English words like that, and he would say in Portuguese, wow, and he'd be talking to Paulo, and he's like, John gets it, he's like, because I'd be like, you respect the father, you wait. And then a G would grab his glass of rum and he would sniff it. And he would go, is good. And then he would take a sip and then I would do the same thing. And he thought that was just the greatest thing. And I'd be like, okay, Paulo, now father has drank. Now we can drink. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
And Paulo got pretty wasted a couple times. He bowed out, I think, on the third night. I think he was just like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't do this.
Well, razzing and drinking, you know?
Yeah.
Like, this guy doesn't even speak our language, really, and he's razzing me. What the heck?
I have a way about me.
Yes, you do.
So, did you have topics? You brought up the podcast today.
Yeah, I do have a topic. Getting out of one's own way.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And I was just
Or-
reading your grocery list. I was going to write a note here on my computer, and you've got hornbean on here, and I'm going, Are you talking about me or you?
It's a flower essence.
Okay.
Yeah, don't get too excited about it.
Well, okay, you have a
What?
topic, but I have a topic.
Okay.
I don't think we've had sex in a week.
I highly
Yeah.
doubt it's been
Haven't? It's been a week.
What?
7 days.
I
6
didn't know we
days.
were going this long, or we're going
Oh,
into
got it.
this.
She's stumbling.
Yeah.
No, I just thought I'd say that.
I highly doubt that.
What, 5 days?
I think you would explode. If,
Is it 5 days?
I don't know. I don't count.
Okay. All right.
Because I
All
usually
right. Well,
just...
on the next podcast, we'll have an update.
Okay.
Okay. All right. What was your topic?
All right. Getting out of
Hornbeam.
one's own way.
Hornbean?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What are you talking about? Are you talking in general in life, or are you talking about in business, or?
Oh, in general in life, I think it comes up in the areas, right, typically that you're pushing the most.
Well, that's something I used to talk about a lot when we were part of a multi-level business for a couple of years, and we were very, very, very successful, and we had a lot of fun, and we got out because the people that were above us started pushing me around, trying to push me around, trying to control me and that kind of stuff, and I didn't appreciate that. So, and they were a little bit immoral around the topic of marriage and things like that. So, anyway, we got out. But I would talk about that with people because when you're in a business like that, you're talking to the general public, and you're searching for people that are looking for some sort of an opportunity, right? You know, nowadays there's a lot more opportunity because of the internet and that type of stuff. And this was an internet-based business, but it was early, and it was the biggest thing I did. If anybody's listening that's in a multi-level, the biggest thing I did was I was already a businessman before I got into that business. I'd had multiple businesses, and I understood, you know, a lot of the hurdles, a lot of the pitfalls, a lot of, you know, taxes, you know, things like that. And so I would educate people about business, whereas a lot of people were trying to teach people how to do things, you know. But I knew that if you give people the right knowledge, you know, it's kind of like a mathematician that is trying to teach somebody calculus, but they don't know basic math. You know, and it's like, oh, well, you know, you actually don't need basic math. You can understand calculus, but they don't. And then you realize they don't even know numbers. You know, it's like, okay, now we actually have to, you know, we have to step back. We have to teach them to count. You know, let's start counting. You know, and okay, I know about, okay, I have 3 things here, so I'll count them. 1, 2, 3. Now, hold on. I'm going to teach you a concept in math that you may not understand, and I take your 3 things. How many do you have now? None. No. We're talking math. How many do you have now? I don't know. Well, it would be 0. Okay. And you're going to learn about 0 first before I teach you to count. You know, if I take everything away from you, you have 0. And now I give you this orange. How many do you have? 1. Okay, but do you really have it? It's sitting on the table. And then they learn to pick it up in their hand, and then you learn possession, right? And possession is 9/10 of the law, right? And then you learn there's all these concepts that are tied, and this massive web of understanding that what you don't realize about people when you're trying to, and nowadays people are trying to force everybody to their way of thinking politically, right? I'm on the left, I'm on the right, I'm this, I'm that, I'm up, I'm down, I'm over here, I'm backwards, I'm forwards, I'm left, and it's like, well, hold on a second. If you really you've watched me convert people to different methods of thinking. You have to really dig down and understand what that person knows. And then you have to train fundamentals. And then when you do that kind of thing, what you find out is that the person you're teaching is actually the problem. They are their own biggest problem. They are in their own way, right? They are like not in the way I'm going to say it this way too. They are actually in the way of themselves. Okay? The Tao of Jeet Kune Do, the Tao, the way, right? If you are in your own way, it means you are not obstructing yourself. You are actually in your own way. You are your own Tao, right? Because of your beliefs, because of your understandings, because of your beliefs of your limitations, because of the things you don't know. You are a way of existing as a human being, as an individual, okay? So when I say you have to get out of your own way, it's a double entendre. It's a metaphoric message, right? And I'm speaking to your subconscious. Your subconscious knows I have a way. I've got a way about me, right? Yeah. Don't know what it is, right? The song is the metaphor, right? I still don't know what it is, yeah. So I'm glad you brought this up because it really brings out the way that I go about when I'm teaching, You know me, I love to teach. And my arms are everywhere right now. I'm doing all these illustrations for Tara, and we don't do video right now. And so people don't get to see it, but I'm doing all these illustrations, and I'm swirling my hands, and I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm pushing both hands towards her.
It's like, are you doing magic?
I have a way about me, right? It's not magic, There is no such thing as the word magic, right? So I won't go down that path, but it is understanding the way, and so what you're doing is you're showing people the way when you're educating them, right? You're creating a new way for them, so there can be a new way about them, so they can, maybe get out of their way or get out of their own way. And I know this. So.
Or, John, let's just say it plainly. We know what you're really saying is just move, get out the way.
Move, get out the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's just, quit with all the fancy talk and let's just
get down to it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's, there is a level of what most people see as arrogance in people that understand more than them, right? When people are successful at something, they gain a confidence, right? When you started martial arts, you could not move properly. You could not move forward and punch.
Hey, I'm not the only one.
No, you're not.
They
No.
started putting left and right as a joke, but it, sometimes you feel like you need it. Left and right on shirts and even maybe pants too, or something like that.
So you could look down and tell.
Yeah,
which one.
I think your brain goes into overload, and they say, okay, with your right hand do this, and you're just like you're already in overload, and you're like, left, right.
You have to look at your hands.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they say, put up your index finger and your thumb, and which one makes the L?
Yeah.
That one's the left.
Yep.
That's funny.
Sometimes you have to go back to that.
You
so
do.
anyways, funny little tangent.
You do. But now you do martial arts and you're very confident. You have skills now. You have the ability of moving in natural patterns, and if we're doing an interactive drill with each other, you respond properly. It's instinctual now, but it's been a long time. It's a lot of training.
So there are a lot of different scenarios where you may be getting in your own way. So let's go with the martial arts.
Well, you are in your own way.
Well, you are innately.
Yes, you're trying, when
and
you
it's
go train
fine.
something, you're trying to get out of your way.
Yeah.
And it's your own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true. And well, that's a good point too, in that, if you're deliberately doing something, you're either going to run into it or you're deliberately doing that, right? Getting out of your own way. And those are points where you hit static, friction, conflict.
The worst things are the things that you do that you don't know you do. There's the four windows. There's the things you do, the things you do that you know you do. There's the things you do that you don't know you do. There's the things you do that you
don't know that you don't know.
Yes, there's the things you do that you don't know that you do, and you don't know that you do it.
And there's things that you don't know that you do that you, yeah.
Right. There's four windows, and I probably should have looked. I didn't think I was going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But the things that you do know that you do, generally people lock down in those, right? And it's like, well, this is what I do. This is how I do it. But then there's always things you don't know about yourself. And that's where you need a teacher. That's where you need somebody to say, hey, I'm here to help you get out of your own way.
Well, or in life, too, you'll have conflicts, and it'll be pointed out to you what you don't know.
Or you slam into a wall, and
Yeah.
you learn on your own.
Yeah, so there's some kind of friction, pushback, and the harder you're moving, the more you're training, the more you're doing, the more you're going to encounter. And, if you're not addressing the little things along the way, you might have a big thing come up.
So what are some of the things that you've done or practiced or have been taught to you, or you've learned off of a podcast or read in a book, that you realized that you were kind of stuck in your own way, and then you maybe struggled to get out of it? You practiced, you tried, Is there a particular topic or something?
Well, I think money would be a big topic in general, and there are a lot of directions you can go in. And so I would say very early on, when we first got together, we were doing that multi-level business. It was quite a mindset shift for me to even think beyond why someone might do work that is not connected to $1 per hour pay. Mm-hmm. That was a huge mindset shift. That was all that I knew, really, is that you'd exchange your time for money, and that was the way to do it. And what you're aiming for is to get the most money per hour of your work.
Yeah. And
as we were in that multi-level, we were reading books, and you were already familiar with the concept, but it really, and I was young. I was 19, 20. I was not hard cooked at that point, but that concept was really baked in, that, you get a good education, get a good job, and lock in that highest dollar per hour and job security that you can get.
Yeah.
And it took a lot to really understand that there are different ways of making money, and that, if you wanted a lifestyle beyond being chained to a desk and having to perform a certain number of hours of work, that you'd have to, first of all, have a business, and second of all, have a certain pricing structure that would enable that. And when I was in high school, I remember sitting down with my high school guidance counselor, and I didn't hardly ever see her, unlike, you who got to see the higher ups, very frequently.
I knew the principal very well.
Yeah, I got to see her, maybe twice a year. And she was very instrumental in helping me do foreign exchange. It was really neat because I got to see her at one of my high school teachers' retirement parties, and I got to thank her personally, which was really special.
Meaningful.
Yeah, because she played such just a few meetings we had, she's like, well, did you know about this? And that's what a guidance counselor is there for. But I can imagine that was really rewarding too, to just like. So, anyways, I think it must have been when I got back, and she was like, because I still had a year of school to finish. I was like, I'm getting out of this place. So I went on for an exchange. What would that be? My junior year of high school. Came back, and she's like, so, basically, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I, even at that point, when I had a lot of experiences, but I was like, I don't know, like all these tests are saying I can be this and that and this and that. I was like, I just know I don't want to be in an office all day. And so looking back, that had a lot of deeper meaning than just like real specific meaning, And so getting out of one's own way, what was I going back to? What was that train of thought?
Well, my question to you was, what thing do you know about that was you had limiting you, and you learned, you read, you studied, you got over?
So I met you right around that time. And I think that's a part of me that was like innately entrepreneurial inside. That was like, there's got to be a different way. Because I'd already lived abroad. I had seen a host parent. Two of them owned their own businesses, although they were basically strapped to their businesses as well. Or they were just very motivated, hardworking people. And one was a teacher that was AG, and I mean, all of them worked very hard. There was just, whether it was a job or their own business.
Well,
I saw different lifestyles.
Okay, let's stop there for a second. The richest guy in the world is strapped to his business. Everybody says that they want to be I want to make as much money as I can. I want to do this. I want to do that. And if you are running a business, that's what you're doing.
But I think it's also, I think what's important to point out is that it's a part of a personality trait. Like a lazy person isn't necessarily going to start a business. It takes too much.
Lazy in what way?
Okay.
They're
like truly lazy. Because there are people who are like, I want to have this kind of lifestyle, and they're motivated enough to do just enough of the work and structure things so that they can do what they want to do.
And they probably need to get out of their way.
Out of
their way.
Their own way?
No, that's a way. People have a way about them, right?
Well, even if if you feel like you're strapped to your business, and I'm obviously using that term, and that's not what you want, you do have to get out of your own way.
And then you go talk to somebody that's working a 9 to 5 at a company, and oh yay, I get to get out. And I mean, Tesla just did a big layoff. It's what do you do?
Well, and some companies like that do a periodic layoff, and they just go by numbers, by performance.
There's no
and they
guarantees in life.
They basically it's like pruning, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you were. So anyways, so money was a big one and has been an evolution for me. And I think, but it's like anything in life, there's a layer upon layer of understanding.
Okay, but before you go down that road, what was the initial, looking back, what was the worst part of the hang-up with money, and where are you now? And what's the transition or the transformation?
Well, I would say the worst part of it is something that I still think. And you and I tend to differ significantly on basically money management. And I'm very much, I have a tendency, it's just a natural tendency, let's put money in these categories, and once it's up to a certain level, then you can spend it on this or that. And it's convenient to separate it out in envelopes or bank accounts. I can generally keep a pretty good tally in my mind. I'm not a big spender anyways. And then you are like, I'm going to invest 90% in my business and just take out what I need. And so that's, I think
By the
over
way,
years,
that's what the richest guy in the world does.
Well,
he doesn't even own a house.
Well, show me his bank statements and his tax return stuff.
Up until Still, he sleeps on friends' couches.
Who are we talking about?
Elon Musk.
Well, old Elon,
Well,
Uncle Elon. I think he's telling stories.
really?
Well, we'll see. It's hearsay. So there are different strategies. This is what I was saying, that there's different levels of being of the way. Right?
I'm not trying to emulate Elon. I'm doing things, and we're not going to do a tax show here, but I'm doing things that are smart.
So what I realize at this point is that there are multiple strategies.
Right.
And that your strategy is more about, I'm gonna put everything into this, and I'm looking to also gain big. Where my strategy is more of let's grow over time and have a life and have an income over time as well.
Well, you grew up with a family that worked a 9 to 5.
Typically,
Your dad worked 9 to 5, and your mom worked 9 to 10 a couple times a month at different jobs.
Yeah,
9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
She worked regularly, but she worked different jobs and different hours at some. Yeah.
From what I understood, she was quitting a lot and
Guess we needed a light turned on.
I guess.
Bing.
We just had one of our lights hooked up to a Wi-Fi plug, just turned on its own. All right.
Here we go. So yes, that does tend to come with a certain mentality. Working a 9 to 5, typically, and
well, it's
save
the example, right? My dad worked a 9 to 5, but he came home at 5 and ate dinner quickly, and then worked all evening at the drafting board in the living room. And so that was my example, right? And you couldn't disturb my dad, at his work in the evening. So then if we did something on the weekend, usually it was work, because we were cutting wood to store up wood for the winter, because our house was heated by a wood furnace in the winter. And, I watched my dad build his own air conditioner. I watched my dad fix all the vehicles. When I was a kid, when I was 3 years old, I was sitting on the wheel well inside the old pickup truck while he took the carburetor off and the head off and was fixing it, put a new head gasket on it. It's inline 6. It was an easy motor to work on, easy engine to work on, but, I grew up around it. And when I was young, I was taking apart toys. My parents they started shopping at garage sales, buying old used toys, because if I got anything brand new, I would take it apart. I wanted to see how it worked. And at that age, when I was young, I couldn't put stuff back together because I didn't have that skill at that time. I could take things apart, but then I started doing, refurbing the stuff, and then, all of a sudden I had mechanical skills and that type of thing, but I grew up around it. So I believe a lot of it is the example that is set when you're growing up, and what your family talks about. There was a lot of derogatory talk about money in your household. There was never any talk about money in my household. My parents just got everything done. They accounted for everything. If we wanted something, or if we wanted to do something as a family, it was talked about. In 2 months we're going up north to the Gunflint Trail. We're going to go snowmobiling, and then it was planned, right? And then we went snowmobiling, whatever it was. We went to Wisconsin Dells, water park area, all the stuff in Wisconsin Dells. It's like a tourist haven, for those that haven't been there. And, we're going to Wisconsin Dells, in June, whatever it is, July, so, and my parents never said how expensive things were. They never complained about gas prices. The only thing I ever heard was, we'll see if the, they never said cheaper. If gas was cheaper, they said, my dad would be like, oh, I know we can get it for, 75 cents or 95 cents a gallon down the road. I'm looking for a Texaco, that kind of thing, right? And I like Texaco gas or Sinclair gas or whatever the gas station was, So then I learned about quality. It's like, oh, why do you want that gas? Well, it doesn't make the engine ping or knock or, anything like that. Their octane is real. It's better. Whatever. My dad was always talking about quality,
Yeah.
And my mom, she would buy the clothes where she didn't shop at Kmart. She shopped at higher end stores. But what I learned is her clothes lasted longer. They might pay an extra $20 my mom might pay an extra $20 for a blouse, but her stuff didn't wear out in 6 months. It didn't start getting raggedy in the wash. But my parents literally were teaching me to invest. Put your hard-earned money into good things and you'll have a better return.
That was my next topic, more specifically within this category. And I think money comes up for a lot of people. And, there are different strategies,
So
right?
where are you at now? From where you were to where you are, and you said it's still something I think. And do you address that in yourself? Are you saying that you can address it?
I think first of all, it's also acknowledging and being okay with where that comes from. Like, why is it that I want to have a certain amount allocated here, a certain amount there? Is that it gives a sense of security. And then I have to be real with myself that, okay, if it's all in cash, is that actually security? And then it brings me to another level of thinking of what is more secure in this day and age in particular as it comes to resources and financial resources. And then that helps me to get to a different level of thinking. And so, for example, I was raised that, your biggest and best investment typically is going to be your house and like your 401k. And, we saw in the last couple decades what happened with the 401k.
Pablum for the masses.
Well, what I've gotten to think also is that it's a simple formula, right?
It makes the wealthy rich. It makes the rich wealthy, I should say. When you buy a house and when you put your money in a 401k, other people you get to use your money. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't get to use it for yourself. You're just working daily trying to pay that off.
Yep. And so,
And as we saw, massive drops in the stock market. Lots of people lost millions of dollars in the 401ks. And the wealthy got more wealthy.
So fortunately, in a way, there are things like that have happened as I've been growing as an adult. Where that, when you were talking to your parents back in the day, that hadn't happened. You're like, I'm not investing in a 401k. You were giving them the riot act as far as, these people are making money even off of your transactions.
So we had two brokers come out. They were brothers. My parents brought them out to start a 401k for my dad's business. I had just gotten out of high school. I told my dad, if you want to start a business, I'll work there, a machine shop. And he decided to, and we started a business together. It wasn't my business. I didn't own any part of it, but I worked there. And I worked there for a year by myself. While he worked his day job, I worked at the shop. And I was on the phone with him a couple times a day. How do I do this? How do I do that? That kind of thing. Because I was learning machining while we started the business. And there was things I could do and things I understood, but I still had to learn. And so after a year, he came and worked in the shop, and then that was the best because he was there all the time. And within a couple of years, we had other employees, and my dad had other employees, and they brought out these brothers who ran a brokerage in town, and they said they want to start a 401k, and all the guys were excited, and I was into taxes, and I had listened to Erwin Schiff for many years, and I opted out of the 401k. And these brothers knew me from town. It's a small town, and the one brother actually literally ridiculed me in front of everybody and said, what do you know? You didn't even graduate high school. And I said, well, I know that, what you're telling me isn't true. When I retire in 35 years,
Yeah.
the money is not going to be there. And he goes, absolutely, it will be. And I said, how much money are you going to make off of this over the years? And he wouldn't tell me. And I said, and when do you get paid? You get paid first. I got to wait for my money. I said, no, thank you. I said, I will put my money into myself, into my own businesses, into the things that I do, and I will use my own money. And at that point in life, I had been a person that would take as many exemptions that I needed to take on my taxes as to not pay taxes during the year, because I had worked full time since I was 15 years old. And so I would pay taxes at the end of the year. I would utilize my money that I made all year long. And then I learned to look for ways to have write-offs and ways that I was utilizing my money. So I would start businesses, and I would use my social security number, and I would call the business my name, so I didn't have to register it. Mm-hmm. So it was just John Baklund, and I'd use my social security number as my tax ID, and then I would find ways. I would have receipts. I would say I had to do this for this, and I would write off as much of the tax I owed at the end of the year from my regular job. And bam, And then when the 401k crashed, when the market crashed, 6 or 7 years later, those guys had to come out and try to convince my parents to stay in the 401k plan because people were pulling their money like crazy. Mm-hmm. But it took a crash to do that. People are not fiscally smart. And we ran into each other face to face as they were coming in. I was leaving, and I looked at them both and I said, "Sucks to be you, doesn't it?" And I just laughed out loud. You know how I do that. I laughed out loud, and I kept walking, and they were just, their heads were hanging. And when I came the next day, I said to my parents, I said, "What did they want?" And they said, "Well, they're begging us to stay in." And I said, "Well, are you gonna?" And my parents did. They stayed in until the next downturn. Then they actually got out and put their money into a gold and silver IRA.
So there are different mindsets, right?
Mm.
And fortunately, when I was in Brazil, I started learning about money because I had to exchange my then traveler's checks.
And let me finish the story quickly. My dad lost millions because you don't get your money back. Even if the market goes back up, the money is going to be devalued.
Yeah.
You don't get your money back.
That's what I was getting
They
at.
take your money.
Living in that country for a year, even as a student, not as an adult, like doing adult stuff, but I had to exchange traveler's checks. There wasn't I didn't have an international credit card or something like that. I had saved my money, converted it to traveler's checks, and was cashing in traveler's checks every couple weeks or watching the exchange rate. And it took me, maybe a couple months. I think I probably talked with one of my host parents. It must have been 3 or 4 months in to be able to speak and try to understand. And they probably coached me too, on how to watch it, and that I would go by this one bank and it would show the exchange rate. And I learned about inflation and deflation, the value of currency, because my money went from probably a 1.3 exchange rate or 1.5 to it tripled at one point. And I was like, yeah, my money is worth 3 times as much because the prices can't change that fast.
Yeah.
Especially when everything was still
and they don't relative to your currency. They don't change relative to your currency.
Right. So when you're already in another country and the exchange rate changes, it's already one something removed. I don't know what the thing would be. If you're in your own country and the money is being devalued, like we're seeing now, gas prices going up is another thing.
Well, food.
But
and
food, and commodities, it translates more directly.
Yeah.
So anyways, I learned about just monetary value in that sense, and that it's not constant. And that itself was a huge lesson. And so when we got in business together a couple years later, as we're talking about these financial concepts, and that when you put your money into your house, it doesn't mean that it's keeping value, or automatically going to increase in value. It often is the inflation. and then you have to be continually putting money into it to keep it on par, so that when you sell it, you're hopefully going to get what you want. And then you're paying property tax each year. And how much are you paying in property tax or in interest, home interest? How much are you
Well,
paying?
and look at what happened in our economy. What if you bought and sold houses and you made enough to buy a really great house, and you live in a town that was de-incorporated because the economy crashed, and you all of a sudden now you're living in a house that maybe you spent too much on, and you're stuck in a town that maybe you can't do a lot of business in anymore.
There are so many scenarios.
Yeah.
And I think overall, when I talk about money mindset, that's the area that has been the most challenging, and there's been a lot to learn. And because there are so many factors, or so many scenarios, and
Or you thought you lived in a really great place, but then you had riots in the last couple of years, and your city got burned down, and now your house value is tanked.
yeah, it could be. And I think life is full of ups and downs, twists and turns anyways, so you can't prepare for everything. I think
The idea is to tie your money up into things that are valuable to others. And a house can be that at some point, and the housing market goes up and down and has a lot of changes. But now the government's into the housing market.
So I'll go back to, I think it depends on what playing field you want to play on. So there's Monopoly for kids, and then there's the regular Monopoly. They're both great games. It just depends on, if you're fine with a 9 to 5, I'm going to put the money into my house and to these things, that's the game that you want to play. And I'm not going to say that there's anything innately wrong with that. You just have to know what game you want to play.
You have to pay attention enough to know when to get in and when to get out, and how the game is played.
Right.
Because you might love Monopoly, but you might lose every time.
Yep.
And why do you love it? Well, I just love playing with money. Okay, well, you like losing? Because ultimately only one person wins Monopoly.
Yeah. And so what I've realized over time is that, I might have had dreams, using the game analogy. Okay, so different levels of games. Let's pretend that there's 10 versions of Monopoly.
Sure.
And so I think there are many versions, there are different levels of money mindset and management. And so, for example, when you started your business, you might have started with $100 or something. That's very different than, I'm just going to assume, I'm just going to go out on a long branch and say that when Ivanka Trump started her fashion business, that she might have had a nice seed money from her dad, not just $100.
Yeah.
Or at least tons and tons of education, having been around certain mindsets and connections.
She could put on a fashion show and have 100 of the richest people in the world show up.
Right. And so I'm just acknowledging that there are different starting points and different games.
Yeah.
And I'm not complaining. It's just the way that life is. I think
that's great. Who cares what other people are doing?
I think that's one of the better things that my parents did teach me growing up, is they're like, you know what? It's the way it is.
Right.
Tough, You can be sore about it, and that's all it'll get you, or you can just make the best with what you have.
Yeah.
So what I was getting at is, there are these different money games, and so you have different teachers out there that are teaching different strategies. So it ranges from, let's say, a Dave Ramsey, who's saying pay off all your debt, don't have any debt, and it was real hard line about that. And that's one strategy that works, and I think that works. But if you want to have a different lifestyle, business, there are those who teach leverage everything, and put your money into your investments, which is more along the lines of what you do. Hang on, let me. hang on. So, but then there's a Ray Dalio, who has managed billions of dollars in investment. There is a Peter Schiff who's hardcore into gold, right? Then or McIlvaney, which is into gold, but they're like balance it out with your portfolio. And what I'm illustrating is that, there are so many game plans out there, and it really depends on which game you want to play, first of all, and is the game plan matched for you and the risk level that you're willing to participate at.
Sounds
also.
like you've had a monetary education.
And
press it hard next time. Sounds like you've had a pretty good monetary education.
Yeah, which is why I'm not so hard on you these days about you're not doing things right, because you're playing a different Monopoly game.
I never listened to you anyway.
Well, thank you. But here's a key
It's a good
takeaway.
thing you're cute.
Yes, it is a good thing. Here's a key takeaway.
I need more coffee.
What's especially stood out to me lately is it's a therapy concept. Your feelings are your indicator.
Yeah.
So if something's feeling off, dig into what is that feeling meaning.
Welcome to the John and Tara podcast, therapy podcast for John and Tara.
Yeah, exactly. And so recently, in my business, I've been having these really huge shifts. And so I've brought on multiple team members, I've restructured payment structure, and I would go through, and I think I shift in general pretty well, but I would go through weeks,
Well, let's
2, 3,
jump
4.
back a second. I brought on people for you. I forced the issue.
You did.
And I interviewed the people and essentially hired them for you. And I chose the people based on what you needed. So what we did, and this is something that I'm not trying to take credit for anything you've done, but as your partner, as your husband, as a quasi-business partner, we consult a lot with each other about your business. We talk about it a lot because it's a ever-growing bit, and there's masses of people. Yeah. So it's a bigger thing. It's not just widgets and you need bigger distribution. There's a lot of dynamic. And so we talk about it, and I said to you one week, I said, okay, for this whole week, I just want you describing to me what you do every day. What you do, the things, how many emails did you have to do today? How many, all this stuff. Okay, you're doing payments now. How long does that take you? And you're like, it takes me a week to do all of the structure of payments because we have how many minutes of videos are watched, and we have
quarterly payments,
hundreds of hours of classes up on the websites, and so you do quarterly payments. So I listened to you, and being in business for so long, I strategized. I said you need 4 people, and that's with everybody doing a full load of work, And since you're the business owner, you can do more than 40 hours a week because we can be watching a movie and you could be sitting there on the couch with your computer.
You get really efficient.
And you could be working like I do. I've sat up, how many days, weeks, and months till 2 a.m. quoting jobs so that I could get through, because I used to have a ratio. I used to get 15% of my quotes, which is incredibly high in my field. But I would quote $30 million worth of quotes. It was crazy, how much I was quoting for one person, plus still doing all the stuff I was doing.
And that can be very intensive.
Right. I have a high expectation of the business owner. And early on you said, well, I should hire someone for this. And I was like, you don't have the money for that. And you're like, but I could hire a service. And I was like, no, you should do it. Just do it. Just do all the jobs for a good long time. Now, when somebody emails you and says, hey, Tara, da-da-da, you only have to get a couple lines into the email, and you're like, oh, shoot, I got to call that person because they're not going about it correctly, right?
Yeah, you can totally, one of our teachers was having audio issues getting ready for a class the other day, and one of our contractors was helping her through it, and I'm like, scratch. Just restart your computer. Yeah. We'll see you in a minute.
Yeah.
Bam, it worked.
You knew immediately.
Yeah.
Because you've done it over and over and over. You've written the emails, and we still talk about certain emails because some emails are tough.
Yeah.
You really got to get across to the person in a polite way, that they're going the wrong direction, or that they can't ask for that, or they can't be doing that, or they need to be doing this, Mm-hmm. And so, it's a lot of strategy. And people think, oh yeah, you started a business, now you got money. No, there's I've watched you up till midnight working on stuff and then getting up in the morning and starting all over again, and that's going through the crucible, as we say. You got to go through that heat treating process of hardening and softening and annealing and tempering and.
And that's what I've learned about money mindset in the last, let's just say, year also, is that you're at whatever level of game you're going to play, there's going to be, so even like you're making $100,000 a year, you're going to have $100,000 a year issues.
Yeah.
And money management mindset. And at all kinds of levels, you're still going to have to manage, and you're going to have different issues at different levels, different tax brackets, different all sorts of things.
Thresholds, milestones, mile markers, stepping stones. There's all these things along the way, and you need to at least be talking to somebody that can help you identify. Early on in my life, it was my dad, and it was very simple. It was yes or no, do it, don't do it. That's ridiculous. This is smart. It was very, very cut and dried with my dad, right? Well, then I ended up having other mentors, martial art mentors, racing motocross mentors, racing snowmobile mentors, and business mentors, and some of these people. And I listen to them in the areas that they know. I listen to their wisdom, and I listen to speculation. And then people that are really good mentors will not be afraid to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just go with your gut, be careful, think smart, but I don't know about that.
Or maybe check out this resource. It sounds like you're kind of heading in this direction.
Right? Yeah, and it'll be, if nothing else, just stay the course. Stick with what you're doing. You will see it. You will figure it out. You might want to figure it out now, but you don't have the tools. You don't have the skills. You don't have the understanding. You need to keep doing that for another year. And then it will reveal itself to you, what you can and can't do. And that's wisdom right there. And I've had people say that I don't know much about your business, but I know you're good at it. And if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be successful. Mm-hmm. And all right, there you go. So now you just need time, development.
So I would say my closing remark would be, and something that I'm doing, is paying attention to my feelings, and that in a way that when, like earlier this year, you helped bring on these contractors, which was huge because it was snowballing. My work was snowballing.
You were going to crash and burn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like right now, you would be crashing and burning.
Yeah, and I went through it actually last year this time. We went on vacation to spearfish, and I was just like, I got to do like nothing.
Well, that was rest and relaxation. That wasn't you were overloaded at a level, but I knew that you could go farther.
Last year.
Yeah, and that's where, when you have a relationship like we have, and we look at marriage like a business also. There's transactions going on. There's loyalty. There's all these different things that are essential in business. There's communication, right? And, so I knew that you just needed a break. You needed downtime. And it's okay. We parked our camper next to a small mountain in the Black Hills, and, some days you just sat there and looked at the trees.
Yeah. It was really good.
Defragging with the fractals of nature,
So what I mean in tuning into feelings is that there are different, what we call stress, right? There are different kind of stressors. But I would say overall, if you're feeling stressed and you're feeling overwhelmed, those kinds of feelings, is obviously a sign to grow or change, do something different.
Right.
And so earlier this year, when we were bringing on the contractors, you had found amazing people. I still had to do training. Yep. And you told me that this is what's going to happen, basically at least doubled my work.
6 months to find out if you got a good person.
Yeah. But plus spending all that extra time.
And what do you have?
Excellent people.
Yeah.
They've you're still going to spend the time in training and all that, but
I've hired and fired all my friends and family and lots of other people.
yeah.
So you learn over time how to identify people.
So when you are going fast and hard, the pain points stand out even more. And a pain point for me was money mindset that was a big one. And so just even thinking, okay, how do I pay for these people? How do I need to change my payment structure? That kind of thing. And I was mulling over it for weeks, and it was already in action. So it wasn't like, at that point, how am I going to do this? It's like, well, it has to be done. But it was taking me that long to come up with a solution. That's what I was getting at, is that now I know if I'm feeling this awkward feeling and like frustrated and like, then I know I need to find a different solution. What's happening is, like when we're training martial arts, it's like, this is not working. Left hand, right hand, do this. It's like, okay, take a breath, maybe slow it down, maybe come into it from a different routine or something. In general, I just need to compute a different way.
Every martial artist would be extremely forward about telling you, thank goodness you have trained in martial arts now that you're in business.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so true. I said to someone the other day, I said, the martial arts analogy, wax on, wax off, what is this doing, master? Why do I, have to do it? It's like, it absolutely trains you.
All of a sudden the punches are coming and the wax off is deflecting to the right, and the wax on is deflecting to the left, and you're like, oh no, that's what he was teaching me.
Right.
But he needed you to do it 10,000 times.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's so true. And yeah. But the analogy is also true if you're like, I keep getting caught with an uppercut, a left uppercut. It's like, oh, okay, you need to train that area.
Well,
so
what happens at minute 2 of doing Thai boxing, and you're like, I can't get past minute 2, and then I have to go to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. I can't get past minute 2, and I'm throwing up. Mm-hmm. And what does your instructor say?
Go to the bathroom?
You need to go for 6 minutes. Your instructor says, work harder.
And then eventually, what are you eating before you come to class?
Well, that too. But eventually, your body gets conditioned to the point where you don't get nauseous.
Right.
You don't get sick. Your muscles get conditioned to the point where you're actually efficiently moving your frame.
Yeah.
Instead of just using your muscle to kick, you're using your body to throw your leg.
And you've also just had to clean out your body.
Well, your system needs to be cleaned, but once you do it over and over and over again, you all of a sudden, and that's been my solution to you. You're like, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to pay for this? And what do I always say?
Keep going.
Sell more, right? What's going to cause you to make more money? Have more sales. All right, work harder, sell more, come up with better marketing strategies, come up with better programs for people.
There are the efficiencies as well, like, okay, don't eat that ham sandwich before you come to class.
Yes.
Drink more water.
Yes.
It's not just about more sales.
Yeah. Don't buy, it is about more sales. Don't buy Facebook ads, Remember we watched that Shark Tank and those guys were like,
we made $16 million and we spent $14 million on Facebook ads.
Right.
We're like, holy moly.
All the sharks are like, what?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but we have to. We got to keep it going. We've tried slowing it down and we don't get the sales. And it's like, you are selling in the wrong market. Or you have a product that people don't really need.
So my closing point about feelings, is that for me, I've learned much more clearly now, instead of like being frustrated about things and kind of wallowing in it, it's like the training. And when you're at a frustrating point, it's like, okay, do I need to slow down? Do I need to speed up? Do I need to take a break? It's a signal that something needs to change. Find the change rather than just continually trying to do the same thing and being frustrated.
Well, and if you work harder, you're going to find the efficiencies you need. If you try to increase your sales, you're going to automatically get efficient. You're going to realize where you're wasting time. You're going to realize where you're spending too much thought. You know, because you can spend energy, you can spend money, you can spend thought, you can be talking to the wrong people, and you're going to figure that out. You're going to go. I mean, when the housing bubble burst, you watch me raise my prices by 30%. I lost a third of my customers, but they were ones that weren't paying. They were ones that were difficult. They were the ones that they weren't in the right area of the economy anyway.
Yeah.
They weren't making enough money. They couldn't go with me. And I ended up with a better quality customer. I ended up with better quality employees because I had to cut my ranks by 30%, and ended up learning about business by doing something opposite of what everyone else was doing. I had brand new machines. I had very expensive equipment. I said, I can't lower my prices because in 6 months, if I need to make a $40,000 repair, I'm not going to have any money in the bank. I'm not going to have receivables that are going to pay for that if I'm just breaking even, you know. So you got to be smart. You got to figure it out, you know. And if you work harder, and if you go with your gut, you know, that was a gut feeling, because even during the housing bubble when it burst, there were still Mercedes were flying off the shelf, BMWs were flying off the shelf, and expensive homes were flying off the shelf.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I am a high-end company. I make great products, and I'm going to move in that direction even more. And it worked out. It wasn't always easy. It was tough, but
Yeah.
you know.
So maybe we should do part 2 of this, because I feel if we do part 2, it's going to end up being at least another hour. But
Yeah.
part 2 would be, John, where do you think you've gotten out of your own way? Or
Well, we kind of talked about it a little bit yesterday, didn't we?
yesterday?
In the car on the way home. Yeah.
Well, that was not on the podcast. So.
No, that's true. All right, we'll have part 2.
Stay tuned.
Drink your coffee.
Have a good day.
NativeRootCoffee.com.
Bye.
Bye.